The May 22nd meeting of the Environmental and Public Works Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ansello? Here. Mr. Antelli? Here. Mr. Colby? Here. Chairman Daniele?
Here.
Mr. Haney? Here. Mr. Wilcox is excused. Mr. Yolovich? Here.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum today?
No, sir.
No? Is there anyone present who did not sign up who would like to speak? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. You have before you the April 24th, 2013 minutes of the Environmental Public Works Committee. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. At this point, Paul Johnson is going to give us a quick presentation on the capital improvement project for 2014 to 2019. And if we could hold all questions until we move and second the actual motion, which will be the first item on the agenda. So, Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everyone should have their copy of the County Executive's proposed 2014 to 2019 capital improvement program. This comes reviewed and recommended by the Monroe County Planning Board, which held one public information meeting during their review. There are a number of program areas that I want to cover quickly for you. They would begin with the aviation program, which is on page 22 of the document. There have been a fair number of changes to this program, and most of them revolving around the cost shares for the projects. There's been a change in funding shares from 95% federal, 2.5 state, and 2.5 local, which has been the case for many years. It's now changed to 90% federal, 5% state, and 5% local. So if you were to compare this with last year's program, you would see those numbers reflected in those share changes. There's one new project in the airport program, the Airspace Protection Program, which is designed to remove obstacles that may present safety hazards in the approach-departure corridors of the airport. And again, if you were to compare this to the adopted program, you'd find that a number of projects have been moved out or advanced from 1 to 3 years from last year's program schedule, or had their funding levels increased or decreased, which is not unusual for the aviation program, as the principal funding source, the Federal Aviation Administration, is fairly regularly changing priorities and categories of project funding. So we do see scheduling and cost changes rather frequently. The next program area is the Pure Waters program, which is on page 33. A few changes to this from last year's program. We have one new project in the Gates-Chiles-Ogden district, the Riverdale Pump Station Improvements Project. There have been some scheduling changes of a couple of projects. The Southwest Pump Station improvements, also in the GCO districts, has been moved out 2 years. And the Van Laer Thickener and Maintenance Center project has been advanced 2 and 3 years respectively, if you again compare it to last year's program. So we've advanced in the Rochester Pure Waters District a couple of projects from the adopted program. Total program for Pure Waters is actually up about 2.8% in total funding. On page 37, you'll find the fleet program. A few changes in the funding here. The equipment for vehicles, highways, and bridges, and the traffic engineering equipment for vehicle equipment purchase have increased in funding, and the total program is up about 11.8% from the adopted program. On page 38, you'll find the Geographic Information Services program, which is identical to what has appeared in previous CIPs, so no changes to that project. And on page 39, moving on to the Facilities Management section of the program, there are no new projects in the program for this 6-year period. However, there's been a change to the Fleet Center Improvements project in terms of advancing the scheduling of that project from 2018 up to the capital budget year, at least for the design and engineering part of it, in 2014. And the construction costs have now been added to that project in this 6-year period. And finally, for this committee, the Water Authority program is on page 57. You'll see the same basic 6 categories of projects as in last year's program. The total funding for the Water Authority program is up 6% from the adopted program, and there have been increases in funding for the residential meter replacement and upgrade program, and kind of offsetting, if you will, reductions in funding for valve replacement, large meter replacement, and upgrade, and the storage facilities rehabilitation programs. And that, Mr. Chairman, concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for a thorough job, you and your staff. At this point, the next item on the agenda is new business.
Referral 13-153.
Moved by Legislator Ansello, seconded by Legislator Colby. Is there any discussion? Legislator Haney.
An inquiry, Mr. Chairman. Is this committee just voting on the projects in those areas that are the purview of this committee, or are we voting on the entire CIP?
Well, I believe we're voting on the entire CIP, but as it relates to this committee. So to answer your question, I mean, as far as asking questions regarding other parts of the CIP, that would be reserved for those committees. At least that's my understanding.
Okay, and then I have just one question, Mr. Chairman. Through you, and I don't have my copy of the proposed CIP with me, but
would you like one?
One of the projects, as I recall, is an addition to the fleet facility at the old Gates Chili Ogden disposal plant. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. The intent with this project is to relocate the Pure Waters Operations Center that's currently on East Henrietta Road, moving that over to Fleet, as well as making infrastructure improvements at Fleet site itself.
And as I recollect, through the chair, the project is going to be funded by the Rochester Pure Waters District?
Through the chair, that is correct, and the intent there is we would back charge other tenants on site associated with those improvements.
Through the chair, what then becomes of the building next to the Iola Power Plant that the Rochester Pure Waters District bought from the county back 10 years or so ago?
Through the chair, that would remain as an asset of the district. If it were to be sold, proceeds from that sale would inure back to the district.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have a concern about the way all of these Pure Waters projects are being loaded into the Rochester Pure Waters District and then presumably back charged in some way, which I really don't understand, back to the other districts. And in this one, where the Rochester district already bought one building from the county, and as I recall, we paid, the district paid $2 million for it. I have a concern about the way that the district, and I suspect it's because the district has money, several million, how these projects are being loaded into the district for some future back charge. But what it has to do is, okay, then I'll just say I'm voting no.
Any other discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Next item,
Referral 13-174, authorize a
moved by
license.
legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Antelli. Legislator Colby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I noticed that the revenue from the rental agreement is going to the Monroe County Airport Authority. I was just wondering, is that being designated to a general specific account for certain uses, or is it going into, what type of an account is that money going to be designated to when they receive the rent?
Through the chair, the revenue will go into the Airport Authority's revenue fund, and those monies are used to offset the net requirement when we calculate the landing fee for the airlines.
So the airlines will be the primary benefit from this rental agreement because they would have a less charge to them?
Through the chair, that is correct.
And I also noticed there's 2 additional years, and I assume there's no escalator in this for inflation? For you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, if the lease were to be extended, it would be reviewed at that point in time as to whether the rent would remain the same or increase.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Item carries. Is there any unfinished business to come before the committee this evening? There being no unfinished business, the May 22nd, 2013 meeting of the EPW stands adjourned. The next meeting will be June 26, 2013 at 5 p.m.